Back with Thompson to Clark. Brad Evans here with me. And, we're going to have to start this show off with some sad news from our childhood, our early days as a Giants fan. But before we do that, I just want to mention we've had a bunch of stuff on the network in these last few days. Brian and I were up yesterday talking Warriors and Bob Myers stepping down, and Brian looked at another prospect who the Warriors could draft if they are going to draft somebody. And then also Rod and I, we did We Want Winners last night. That one, he was having Rod was having some issues with his video. So that one's audio only. We tried with the video, but it just did not work. So lots of stuff in the network. And then Brad and I here today. No Giants game today, so people can catch up with some stuff if they want. But I guess we do have to talk about the Humm Baby himself. Roger Craig passed away. I think it's always sad when someone passes away, but man, to live to 93 like he did, what a fantastic life, and just the all in baseball. We all know that he was the Giants manager from, the biggest time of my fandom as a kid. I think he came in at the end of 85. And then he took over until right before Dusty took the Giants to the World Series in 89. They won the division in 87 as well. So some really, really fun memories for me of Roger Craig. And, they always say he invented the split finger. He said that he didn't really invent it. He kind of changed around a pitch and maybe made it a little bit better than someone who had taught him. But man, what are your memories of old Humm Baby?
Here's the funny thing, because again, when it comes to 1985, we just remember losing 100 games. And there was no ESPN. Well, I mean, at least for me, there was no Sports Center. There was no, it was the radio and listening to the games, and barely got any games on TV because we didn't have cable.
Just the away games. We just would get the away games, and they would be like at 5 o'clock in the afternoon.
Exactly. Which was fine for us because we weren't working.
Yeah.
I mean, we're kids, but it's one of those things you just always kind of forget that. Yeah, he came in with like 18 games left in the 85 season and took over. That's unheard of nowadays, that somebody comes in with somebody gets fired with 18 games left.
They were like,
fired.
They were like Jim Davenport. We're not firing you after this slow start. We're going to wait. You get to 92 losses and you're out of here, buddy.
Exactly. We don't want to lose 100 games, but it happened anyways. I guess at least Davenport can say that year he didn't lose 100 games.
Exactly.
But and that's unheard of. This era, that would never happen. But the fact that then he was handed the reins after that to say, "Hey, take this over." I don't know if there was a more perfect person at that time to take over the team when you have guys like Robbie Thompson, Will Clark, these guys coming in, to be kind of a level-headed, upbeat guy to say, well, we're not going to lose 100 games this season because we got these young kids, or we're going to play baseball. We're going to suicide squeeze the crap out of you. We are going to play defense.
Little did we know as we would grow older that the suicide squeeze is not a very highly efficient play, but the Giants would do it. Like they would, sometimes the batter would miss the bunt.
But in the small ball era, that's the thing. The bunt was an art form. Nowadays, you see the bunt, and you go, "Hey, that guy got a bunt down." But back in the day, when a guy got a bunt down, I mean, how excited were we when the bunts were laid down? Because we're like, "Oh, that's perfect. You put it." So this guy comes off the mound to the first base side. You get it in there. So Roger Craig was like, "Yeah, that's what we're going to do. We're going to score some runs any old weird way that we can." And then we got to just love the guy for years until 92. When Dusty Baker took over then in 93, at the end of the 92 season into 93. But, he is the face. He's the face of that National League Championship, NLCS team in 87, the National League Championship team in 89. I used to go to the ballpark a lot in 90 and 91, drive up there with some friends and sit out in the bleachers. And we just, we'd always talk so good about Roger Craig. And
Yeah.
um, so it's a tough passing to take, and condolences to the Roger Craig family, and to all of the Giants family. Everybody in the front office who knew him for years, and I'm sure even guys like Buster Posey, they probably got to know Roger Craig over the years too, because he would come out to the ballpark every now and then and make an appearance. And
when was the last time we saw him? Was it the Will Clark ceremony?
Yeah, I think it was, and he was there by video in that little clip. If you can find it on YouTube, I think Will Clark actually retweeted it today, and man, it was hilarious. He said, Will Clark, you were great. You would have been even better if you would have listened to me, which is fantastic. They had a really good relationship, those two guys, which is hard to say because Will Clark was such a brash dude coming in as a rookie, and Roger Craig was this, Humm Baby, ho hum type of dude who was like, well, we're going to go out there. But there were times Roger Craig would come out and get fired up. And when you saw him come out and get fired up with the umpire and get tossed, you knew stuff was going south, and the umpire probably blew the call.
Roger Munter, we're going to talk about him in a little bit. He has the great Substack where he follows the Giants minor league. His post today, he said that he was named after Roger Craig, and he always was uncertain about it because it wasn't until 86 or 85, 86 that Craig came to the Giants. And then he said, then it made sense. But otherwise he's like, you named me after this, win-loss, losing 20 some odd games, for the Dodgers. Like, you named me after that guy. But then he said, in 86, then it made sense. We're going to talk about Roger's work in a little bit because he had a really good post today that I'm going to discuss with Brad. But so we come in, and it was perfect timing for us because we're still playing. We're playing Little League, getting, going into high school, and there's this mentality of, hit and run and defense. And he talked about the perfect Humm Baby player. I think the guy's name was Brad Gilden or something like that. And they said, why is he the Humm Baby player? He's like, well, he didn't have any talent. It was all heart. That's the Humm Baby player. And so that's what we grew up on. So that's what we knew baseball to be. Now baseball's very different. It's about launch angle and the margins and this and that. But
I was a Humm Baby player, I'll tell you that much.
Oh yeah.
When I played high school and I played the semi-pro leagues and all the men's leagues and all that stuff, I was a Humm Baby player. I didn't have the talent, but I would go out there and I would have a good attitude, and I would try harder than everybody else on the roster, just because that's what I had to do. But I enjoyed it, and I got that from Roger Craig too. Just watching Giants baseball in the late 80s and early 90s, that's how you played baseball.
Yeah.
And so, those were my formative years. I started high school in 87. So God, I'm old. and so then just, watching those teams in high school, all throughout my high school, that was the only coach of the Giants or the manager of the Giants all of my high school playing years. So that's kind of who I looked up to, because my coaches in high school were kind of garbage. So I always looked at Roger Craig like, well, what's he doing? What's he teaching? That's what I'm going to do. And so that's kind of how I fashioned my game too.
Yeah, it's funny. I did the same thing when I had to play shortstop as a senior in high school. All I did was just study the things that Royce Clayton did. I would record the games and then rewatch clips and make sure that I could see what he was doing. So we'll end it with this, which is the idea that you had the Humm Baby coach, and then you had Will, and then you had Robbie, and you had other players who may not have been as talented. Now, we had the A's across the bay, and that was a team where you're like, okay, these guys are really talented. They have all of the best players, and they should be winning these games. And for the Giants, you're like, oh, well, they do have some talent. Like Will Clark was one of the best players in the game. But, maybe from a pitching staff perspective, they didn't have that, that ace who was throwing 95 and glaring at people like Dave Stewart. We had big, Rick Russell. We had, he's a portly fellow who was, thrown in the high 80s, and he was almost 40 years old.
Big Daddy.
So, that was the kind of the thing was, okay, maybe we don't have the most talent, but they're going to figure out a way to do it. And also because of that, they would ship off players who were really talented, but didn't have that attitude. Like Chris Brown, who made the All-Star team in 86. He's I think he may have been the only Giant to make the All-Star team. I know he was the only offensive player to make the All-Star team for the Giants.
There might have been a pitcher that year. That wasn't Garrett making the team.
Garrett was the year before.
The year before. Okay.
Yeah, he was like the only All-Star the year before, and he had like 13 saves, and because in baseball everyone has to make it from one team.
Yeah, exactly.
So Chris Brown, like you're watching Chris Brown in 86, you're like, oh wow, here's our cornerstone.
Oh, Kruko was it?
Kruko, you're right.
Chili Davis. There you go.
Kruko. How did I forget Kruko?
Yeah.
And so Chris Brown gets shipped off because he's not that kind of player. He's not playing, through injuries or always giving his 110. And, some of it could have been just a personality issue. We weren't there, but, now a lot of times, when you go back and some of those things, you're like, oh, this guy had a bad reputation. Really, it's just the coach tanking the reputation but I don't know about Chris Brown, but that was the thing, right? Just Chris Brown gets shipped out, and then we grab, Kevin Mitchell and these guys who are just like, barreling over guys at home plate and stuff. So it was a fun team to watch, a really fun team to grow up on. And Roger Craig was the one who really brought that attitude. And this is a perfect match of, the Humm Baby coach with these guys who wanted to play in that style. Like, you always go back. So you see this play come up on Instagram every once in a while. They do these things. Oh, back in the day, baseball was like this. And it's, double play ball, Ozzie Smith to Okendo at second, and Will Clark slides at the very last minute to break up this double play. And like that, that's what it was back then for us. It's like, oh yeah, that's how you're. And then you get older and you're like, I don't want to get hurt. Don't slide at the last minute on me.
No, don't do that, because then if you get in a fight too nowadays, these guys get suspended, and this guy gets a fractured arm. Mike Morris goes head first into somebody, and
stupid
concussion. So
who was the pitcher?
Oh,
Hunter Strickland. Oh, what an idiot!
Yeah. Do not speak his name on this podcast.
Not very good Giant there.
No.
But yeah, so as we move on, Roger Craig, R.I.P. Great memories for me. Cheers to
the Humm Baby, the original, the one and only, the Humm Baby.
All right, let's move on to some information. It looks like the Giants will get a little bit of help from the offensive side. They don't, like I said, they don't play today, but they will play Tuesday. They're in Colorado.
And you need pitching help when you go to Colorado, though.
yeah, you do. And Alex Wood goes on the DL. They bring up Tristan Beck, but they get back Jock. So it's a fun place to come back from the DL, Colorado.
Heck yeah.
He's like he's taking batting practice, going like, man, I feel really good. I'm not hurt. No way.
I'm crushing stuff.
Ball's going 480 out to right field. Jock is going to be back, as well as Tyro. They've missed Tyro a little bit. It'll be a little bit of a crunch now, though, because Crawford and JD Davis and Casey Schmidt. So we'll see what they do as far as the rest of the infield, because you got to play Tyro's you got to play him every game. Like, he's really a catalyst for them. So we'll see what they do there. Yeah. And they struggled a little bit. We'll talk about that in the last segment as we look forward to this week. We'll talk about what happened last week. I was a little disappointed by the outcomes, though. I wouldn't say I was disappointed in that Orioles series, because the Orioles are a really good team. We'll save that because we have other news, which is Luis Matos. How long are they going to be able to keep Luis Matos down? And if I'm like a Giants outfielder, I'm making sure I don't get hurt.
Right.
Because you bring up Luis Matos, I don't know if they're going to want to send him back down. This is not like Ramos, right? They're not going to utilize him like they did Ramos, which is, let's see, he's struggling, but we'll give him a shot here. Let's see if it helps him. No, they want to prepare the 21-year-old. If he is going to come up, they want to prepare him to, stick around. So if I'm an outfielder, I'm making sure that, I'm not walking over any lines. I'm not, doing anything to piss off the baseball gods, because Luis Matos is coming and he's tearing the cover off of the baseball in AAA.
Yeah, it's one of those situations too. We talk about, everybody talks about it for years at the Giants and their I guess we can call it a curse. I don't know who cursed us, but having an outfield prospect actually come up with the club and stick and make it, it's been years. I mean, I honestly, I think they talk about it. When was the last one? Was it Danny Gladden? Was he even? I don't even think he was. I'm not even sure he was one of ours before he came up and through the system. But Darren Lewis, we even traded for him.
Yeah, he was an
A. So that's the thing. I mean, you look at these guys and you go, when was the last Giants outfield prospect that came up and made some sort of? That's what I think it was. Chili Davis.
Yeah,
I think Chili Davis might have been the last one. That's why they call it the Chili Davis effect. Sorry, I called it a curse.
Are you telling me that John Bowker wasn't the guy?
Yeah, I hate to break it to you, but John Bowker, even when he came up and we got really excited because he had a first couple of good couple of games, we were like, oh, maybe Bowker's the one. Nah, he wasn't.
One of my favorite Giants Twitter followers over the years. She got the @Gidget. That is her username on Twitter. So she's been on for a while.
Impressive.
Every time he would come up, she would just go Bowker mania.
Good old John, because it was Bowker and who was the other guy? There were a couple of Johns. Bocock. It was John Bowker and John Bocock. We had one year, I think both those guys were up at the same time.
Todd, there was a Todd Linden sighting back in the day for outfielders. There was a Rickert Fanita. There were lots of
Mark Carrion.
Dante Powell, Calvin Murray.
Mark Carrion was a Yankee, right?
Yeah,
originally, So
yeah, but I mean, we had some high picks too. Like I said, Dante Powell was Fresno State, I believe. Calvin Murray was supposed to be like a speedster, but he couldnd hit. Darren Ford. So yeah, I'm excited because we'd kind of talked about him sadly last year because he was hurt and struggling, and he's back. And I'm going to read you a stat here. So actually less of a stat, more of an analysis from Roger Munter, the Substack. Go check out his Substack. I think it's like $7 a month. It's fantastic value. He said, he wrote in the Substack today, and as I documented the other day, while there are certainly a fair amount of magic wandoos involved in Matos's hits, because of his plus bat speed, even balls that aren't squared up are being put in play at extreme velocity. Over the weekend, 7 of his final 10 balls in play were hit harder than 95 miles per hour exit velocity, including 5 triple digits. While he gets an occasional 57 mile per hour single, that's more an indication of the good things that come from putting the ball in play. As often as he does, then it is an indication of some underlying BABIP luck inflating his numbers. Matos is the kind of player who is likely to have higher than normal BABIP because of his predilection for getting balls.
Yeah, he used a big word. I'm not privy to big words.
For getting balls into play in the first place, along with above average speed. So, because we talk about this with Tyro, because Tyro doesn't walk very often. So his high average was the result of a high BABIP. And, when your BABIP is over 400, more than likely it's going to come back down. And similar with Casey Schmidt, because Casey Schmidt also doesn't walk. But what Roger is saying is that Matos may have a higher than normal BABIP, but it's because he hits the ball so hard because of the exit velocity off of his bat. And it may not be any sort of luck, or maybe just a little bit of luck when it comes to that. So that got me really excited because he can run a little bit and he's a speedy outfielder. So those are a bunch of things that really, really would help this team. They don't really carry an everyday center fielder, and if he could be that, wow, what an amazing injection of everything good about what the Giants, could use in one player. And it's just you kind of for Giants fans, we're a little bit like skeptical because of all of the guys that Brad and I just mentioned, because they've all come through and we've hoped and hoped and hoped, and they never stuck around and they never did it. And they didn't really do it on other teams either. So it's not like we just couldn't make it work. It's just they were not big time major league players. So I'm hopeful. I don't know when it's going to happen, though, because what Roger also wrote was that the Giants don't really have a need in the outfield like they did in the infield. So he may, it may be a little delay of him actually coming up. But, man, it's exciting to even think about.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, honestly, I'm more excited about this prospect than most prospects because we talked about it earlier. He's my type of player. He's not gonna hit 30 home runs in a season. He's not gonna hit 40 home runs. He's probably not even gonna hit 20. Maybe he hits 15. But he's that combination of speed, defense, and average. I mean, he's going to put the ball in play. He's going to make things happen, and it's going to stretch the lineup because right now you've got Lamont Wade Jr. playing just otherworldly when it comes to on base percentage and everything else. His eye is phenomenal. And then you've got Tyro Estrada, who's also just having a great season in terms of getting on base, stealing bases. So if you can put Luis Matos somewhere down in like the 8 or 9 spot, and then if you lead him off in an inning, all of a sudden you've got 3 leadoff men going back to back to back, which is awesome. And a couple of those guys, Lamont Wade and Tyro, do have some pop. And then having the defense in the outfield, Austin Slater still, though, again, also my type of player. But as we know, he struggles against righties. So that's kind of a bit of a problem. If Matos can handle both lefties and righties, then he's got the job. And he's, like you said, he's going to be really hard to push out. If he gets up to the majors and he starts making an impact, he's going to be really, really hard to send down. Giants fans will riot if they have to send him back down at some point, but moves are going to have to be made. What do you do? Do you trade Austin Slater? I mean, he's a guy who crushes lefties. So can you trade him though?
There was a piece I sent in our text chat earlier about Wilmer possibly being on the block, and they I think Wilmer just signed for a 2 or 3 year deal recently, right?
I believe it was a 2-year deal. I'll take a look on Spot Track just real quick.
And that is it's kind of a problem, but a good problem in that you have enough top level players on your 26 man that someone has to get pushed out. And Wilmer's I like having Wilmer on the team just because he is that right-handed bat that you can rely on to give you a good AB. But that's what's going to happen is as Casey Schmidt and Patrick Bailey and Luis Matos, and maybe next year, Marco Luciano and Kyle Harrison, as those guys come up, guys are going to get pushed out. Now, Brandon Crawford is probably at the end of his Giants thing, but, they don't really have a shortstop unless you're talking about someone like Tyler Fitzgerald, but they don't really have a shortstop if Luciano is eventually going to be a third base. So maybe you push Schmidt to shortstop. But, one thing Roger wrote also about Tyler Fitzgerald is that he said that Tyler Fitzgerald might be the best actual shortstop in the Giants organization, along with Brandon Crawford from a defensive perspective. So that's kind of interesting. And he's not a propped up prospect that we hear a ton about. So, that's something that to keep an eye on as far as that is concerned. He said, even better than Casey Schmidt playing shortstop. So that's something to think about as well. But, as we kind of joke about Zadie making all of these moves, and people are, these are just chess pieces, and they're getting moved up and down, and certain guys, Connor Joe. Hey, Connor Joe. Oh, wait, what happened to Connor Joe? Oh, someone else. So there was a left-handed hitter who, who's in the Dodgers organization 6 years ago, and so Zadie picked him up, and Matt Beatty. Oh, Matt Beatty. Oh no, Matt Beatty. There's so many guys like that.
Who is tearing it up in Sacramento? I almost said Phoenix. Jeez. See, we start talking about Roger Craig. We start talking about the 80s in AAA baseball. I'm going to say the Phoenix Firebirds. But yeah,
Fresno Giants, man.
The Fresno Giants. Good Lord. So Wilmer is $6.5 million this year, $6.5 million in 2024, and a player option. He can opt in on a third year at 3.5 in 2025. So yeah, it's a movable contract. I mean, it really is, because a player option at 3.5, he'll be 33. So it's not like he's 36 or 37 years old at that point.
Yeah.
If he opts in at 3.5, it's because he's having a rough couple of seasons, but he's absolutely worth at this moment way more than 3.5. I know Kapler brought him into his office, had a talk with him, and said, one of the intangibles that they really appreciate about Wilmer Flores is that he hasn't had a whole lot of playing time lately, but when he does get that playing time, he is ready. He's positive. When he's on the bench, he's positive. When he comes in a pinch hit, he's positive. So that's just, just kind of an intangible that if you're looking to have a winning season, if you're looking to get to the playoffs and be successful, you need guys like that on your team. So.
Yeah, for sure. A couple of other prospects. I know we've gone this far without really talking about Kyle Harrison. And it seems like really that they're just looking at him to get in a good rhythm where he's not walking guys. Like, he's still almost walking a batter in an inning, and he hasn't really pitched more than 4 innings in a start because they cap him at 75 pitches a start. So I think if you start seeing some outings from Harrison where it's, 4 innings, 7 strikeouts, 1 walk, that would probably be a nice sign of that, they'll be more interested in bringing him up. But, they, like we've talked about this all season, they have so many starters. And in some cases, to me, it's like, well, you don't really have any starters except for, 2 or 3 if you have 8. But they do have this ability to move guys in and out. Even tomorrow, I think Brebbia is opening, and so that they can keep Logan Webb and Cobb on their, on their normal rest plus a day. So they didn't even have to move them up. So they're able to do things like that. But, I think if Harrison was able to put together 5 or 6 starts of where he's not walking as many guys and he's really attacking the strike zone, we could see him. But I don't think it's going to happen until then, if I'm reading Roger and what he wrote correctly.
Yeah, I don't think there's just not that urgent need for it right now, and I think that's important, and I think that's good because it means for the most part the Giants players are healthy. Wood just went on the IL, but Giants pitching is healthy. And you've got Stripling and you've got Manea kind of waiting in the wings. I know most Giants fans would say they'd rather see Harrison, but I think you'd rather have him fine tune his tools in AAA. Because again, he didn't pitch in AAA, but a couple of games last year. So this is kind of a big deal that he, gets almost a full season under his belt.
Yeah, and another guy, Keaton Wynn, kind of on the periphery as well. And Reggie Crawford, hitting and pitching in San Jose.
Yeah.
But I think they're being really careful with him. He's going to pitch, and then he's going to take a day off, and then they'll let him hit, and then he's going to take a day off and prepare to pitch. Like, they're not just throwing him out there and going okay, dude, you're playing every day here. You're not coming off the field. They're being really careful with him. That's a guy, I always say this because I want to go to so many more San Jose Giants games than I get to go to. But that would be a fun guy to check out is Reggie Crawford. All right, let's move on a little bit to our player of the week here. You had 3 guys, and I tweeted it out, and I said, I really wanted to vote for Luis Matos, but he wasn't on this list. But go through who was on the list for player of the week.
Yeah, so we actually had, for the first time, I don't remember this ever happening before, but we had a tie for first place.
Oh, wow.
For our players. So we have co-players of the week. So coming in third, poor JD Davis came in third with 20% of the vote. He had a good week though. A 181 WRC plus, a 375 batting average, 2 runs, 1 rib, and a 524 on base percentage. But that wasn't enough to get it done for player of the week. Co-players of the week, Alex Cobb and Lamont Wade Jr. And Alex Cobb, a 1-0 mark on the week in the one game that he pitched, 7 2/3 innings, a 1.46 FIP, didn't give up any runs in 7 2/3 innings, gave up 5 hits and 7 strikeouts, didn't walk anybody. And then his co-player of the week, Lamont Wade Jr., another fantastic week. The guy's just playing lights out baseball this year, which is great to see after the rough 207 batting average and injury riddled season he had last year. So fun to see him back playing good baseball, because such a lovable, fantastic dude. 199 WRC plus, 316 average, 1 home run, 4 runs, 1 rib, and 435 on base percentage. Sets the table night in and out and day in and day out. So congrats to the co-winners of player of the week, Lamont Wade Jr. and Alex Cobb.
You know why Lamont won it? Hit the ball in the water.
Yeah, well, that's true. Oh, you know what? Oh, I didn't even put that on there. Splash hit number 100. Maybe that would have pushed him over the edge. I had to even the playing field. You can't throw that in there.
I voted for Cobb, by the way, because I think that was a great start for them.
That was fantastic
against a really good team too. So
he's had one bad start this year, right?
Yeah, he's like the reverse Disco, where the last few starts for Disco have been a little rough.
Yeah, and then Logan Webb is getting the Matt Cain treatment. Goes
so
out there.
I think it's because he kind of looks like a smaller, pudgier version of Matt Cain.
Smaller and pudgier. He's instead of the horse, he's the donkey.
Yeah, well, you know what's so great about him though? He has so much fun playing baseball.
Oh yes,
that dude is always he's laughing, he's smiling. He puts the glove up to the mouth, which tells you as a fan he doesn't want you to read his lips. So it's either something he only wants to tell his teammates, he doesn't want the other team to hear, or he's like saying bad words, So.
Well, that's a great point, because I mean, just a month ago, we're sitting here going, this team is boring. It's tough to watch. Not much is going on. But now when you start talking about these guys and the season has progressed and we're getting close to like 60 games into the season, you're starting to see the fun. You're starting to see the personalities come out. These guys are starting to mesh. Yeah. And they're playing good baseball. I mean, Schmidt and Bailey had really, really rough weeks. Both of them hit below 150 each.
Yeah.
They're having a hard time finding hits right. Yeah, they're going to struggle. But pitchers are going to figure them out. They're going to find their weak spots. Casey Schmidt does like to swing at a lot of baseballs, no matter where they're at. Patrick Bailey just
Did you see what Grant said that a nickname is going to be for him?
Yeah, Chasey Schmidt.
Chasey Schmidt. That was good.
That is good stuff. I mean, it is true. It's unfortunately true. And then Patrick Bailey, who still didn't really get a chance to prove himself in AAA. He was just starting to kind of turn it on there, and they came up. But again, defense, when you talk about both those guys, saving runs, you look at Patrick Bailey behind the plate. These starting pitchers are pitching fantastic. He can wrangle Camilo Doval. That's hard to do. Him and Joey Bart can both do that. Those are great intangibles to have with Camilo Doval. And there's no coincidence that since it's been Doval or since it's been Schmidt well, first Bart and then Schmidt getting the majority of the games behind the plate, that Duvall has really, really turned it on in the closing role and has been almost lights out when it comes to, shutting down and getting the save. So, yeah, man, this team. And then they have a week like they had. And then you go, this team, it's a different this team. But
Yeah,
I'm happy. I'm enjoying watching them play. So
and Logan is very much into being a leader and being a mentor, and it's a little harder to do it from the perspective of being a pitcher because you're not out there every day. And so I don't expect, necessarily a pitcher to be able to sort of be the team leader, the overall team leader. But he loves the idea of being that guy. And so I think that's really cool because he's kind of a young guy himself, and he's accepting of that role. Like this, I'm going to be here for a while, and I'm going to be the guy to bring this organization, back. I'm going to be the, maybe not the Lincecum, right? Maybe it's not the Timmy. He's not that electric. He's not going to be able to lead by example in that way. But maybe a Kane could be. He's probably got a little bit more personality on the field than Kane, though Kane has a pretty dry wit off of the field. But he could be like that, right? Because you do need that sturdy guy who, after a loss, you go, "Oh, Webb's pitching. We're in this game no matter what," and that's a great thing to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was really excited. Everybody was too when he signed that long-term deal. Just to have him around and just to know that the organization is starting to kind of give out the long-term deals. It's promising when you see guys like Schmidt and Bailey come up, and Matos might be coming up to know that, okay, we're not just going to showcase these guys for sale. They're not up for sale. They're going to stay here and hopefully for the long term, and we're going to keep building and then adding, veteran presence as time goes on. Hopefully not to 1-year deals with a 1-year opt out, stuff like that. Hopefully we can, and Mitch Haniger, sign him to a 3-year deal. So there's that promise and there's that hope that we're starting to see things kind of mesh together.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to the last segment of this show, I will go first because I'm starting to bust out this bad boy. Now, I bought this last year.
Yeah, I like that.
Because as it gets a little warmer and we do this show, I got to keep the door closed and I can't really open a window because you don't want that sound from the outside coming into the mic. The drinks, if you got a little bit of ice, they just quickly melt. So I bought this last year. It's the Yeti. I don't even know what version it is, but it doesn't have the handle. Like the coffee cup one has the handle. So I don't know. Maybe this is for cocktails. I just bought it thinking like, oh, this would be good for cocktails.
Those are like camping tumblers.
Yeah.
So they're good and rugged for camping type of stuff because you can walk around the campground and hide your booze in it. Not that a camp host is going to go, hey, you quit drinking because what do you do when you go camping?
Yeah, what do you do?
You drink, you sleep, you hike. I mean, that's pretty much it.
So I refilled, or my wife, when she went to Trader Joe's, she refilled on our Kentucky Best. This is the Brad Evans recommendation, not the bourbon that you're going to necessarily sip, but the perfect bourbon for mixing.
You're not going to put it out when company comes over either, because it's not because it's a great bottle. It's because you don't want to scare anybody away.
It's for the mixing, and you have your. You have your higher scale bourbon for when the people come over, but I got a shot and a half of that bourbon, and then I went to Sprouts and they had the Zevia, and I got the you can't see it through my green screen, but the Zevia ginger ale.
Now I didn't put it in front of your shirt. Oh no, you can't do that either.
Now I didn't want the 6-pack because yesterday I took the car in to Pep Boys. We have a Pep Boys right where lots of stuff are. So I dropped the car off, then I can go grab lunch and go walk to the Starbucks and just hang out in that area. And they were taking a little bit longer than I thought they were going to take. So I was like, okay, I'll go to Sprouts. I want to get some ginger ale. But I was like, should I get a 6-pack? Because do I want to carry the 6-pack walk across the street back to the car. But they have these little long boy cans of Zevia.
Nice.
So I was like, oh, perfect. Ginger ale. So I could mix with my bourbon. So I got the Zevia ginger ale and bourbon drink going today.
Excellent. That's a good one. That's what I had last week when my stomach was a little weird, and I think it helped.
There you go.
Alcohol helps weird stomachs.
There you go.
Don't tell anybody. I'm not a doctor. So I went with tried and true today because I struggled. I was thinking all day. Isn't that weird? All day long, I was like, what am I going to drink? Like, what am I in the mood for? And I was kind of in the mood for like, well, I could have a T to C, a Thompson to Clark. I could have, we had red wine in the fridge that we opened this weekend. It was really good. So I was like, well, maybe I'll do something I've never done before and have a glass of red. But then I opened the fridge and I saw the Sierra Nevada Pale Ale, the green bottle. It is like home. Yeah. It is my favorite beer of all time. So I busted that out and, I've been trying to sip on it, but boy, am I thirsty.
It's warm. I don't know what the weather's like over there, but it's warm here.
It's warm, but as you can see out the window, we get anytime it's warm here in the Sierras, man, you get those afternoon thunderstorms that come up and drops the temp by about 10 degrees, and you can hear the thunder every once in a while. So yeah, the youngest went to Sand Harbor today up at Lake Tahoe for 8th grade. Field trip, which is about from our house. It's like a 40-minute drive. So they went there today. She sent some pictures. Tahoe was crystal clear blue, just like it always is. Skies were clear. And I was like, oh man, you guys had a good day. And as soon as she got back, just and the thunderstorm. So they beat it. So that was good.
All right. Last segment. Let's talk about the week that was and the week that will be for the Giants. We had talked about, this is a really nice test. We recorded last week on Tuesday, so we had the game 1 against the Pirates, where they boat raced them, and then we're going, oh, maybe we get a couple. Then we go into this big series with the Orioles on a little bit of steam, but no, they lost the next 2 games to the Pirates, and which was unfortunate. And so they head into this series. Baltimore comes in. It's the black and orange against the black and orange, and they lose a really tight game on Friday, which was a really good. It was a really good baseball game. 3-2, 3-2. It was 2-2 going to the top of the 7th. Baltimore scores 1, and the Giants couldn't really. Only 10 hits for both teams combined. And so, when you lose a game like that against a good baseball team, I find that to be a good barometer. It's not a bad barometer to lose that game. You're like, okay, that was a test, and let's see how they bounce back. And they bounce back fantastically. And this is the reason why I had the vote for Cobb for Player of the Week, because this was the game. It's like, okay, we tested ourselves. They're a little bit better. Now we need to bounce back and let's see who we are. And they won 4-0. And then Duvall comes in the 9th, and he's just like throwing baseballs, and guys can barely see it. And it was like so really fun win. And so you're like, okay, we measured ourselves and we're good. And then they just, they're still not. This is what separates them from being a really good team from the average team that they are right now. Is, then they just get beat up, and DeSclafani can't find the strike zone. And he's an interesting guy, because when you read his quotes, you can read them one of 2 ways. I read them as he hasn't had enough success. So his mentality sometimes is like, it happens. And I don't like that as a fan. I want him to be fiery and be a little bit like, that sucked. I'm going to fix it. We'll be fine. But he's looking at it sort of like the long game, the long season. He's like, you know what? I had to wear that one today. Long season. I'll be fine. And I'm like, no, I want you to be mad. But he's just not like
angry at your performance.
Yeah. He's just not like that. He's looking at the big picture. And I kind of wonder sometimes, I'm like, yeah, because you haven't had, the success and whatever. He's been a good pitcher. I don't want to degrade him, because, we've seen him when he was really good. The first year he was with us, he was really good. But yeah, it's a little bit too sort of not worried for me. Like, it's a little bit too much like, I'm not worried. And I'm like, you should be. Like, you sucked today. So
he's probably internally beating the crap out of himself.
Sure
so he doesn't want to do it out in the media too, because he's like, I'm gonna and then thanks media, I'll see you later. And then he goes home and he's like, you idiot. That was awful. That was awful.
But I just wish, if he could be more consistently above average, it makes so much difference, because for Logan Webb and Cobb, like the team is so dependent on those guys pitching well. Because after that, the bullpen just goes through hell for like 3 games in a row, because you're relying on the bullpen so much more. And if DeSclafani could just be more consistent and more above average, then you just got to worry about those 2 games. And now Alex Wood goes on the DL again, so that kind of sucks. But, I think that's kind of like, in a weird way, DeSclafani is like the most important starting pitcher for them, because we have the 2 guys who are pitching, like the 2 best starters, and then DeSclafani's in the middle, and then we got this back end that is kind of questionable. So I don't know. I hope that has a better year, because he's been so the ups are great, but the downs are so bad.
And I think too, that's probably why a lot of fans are clamoring right now for Kyle Harrison. But I don't know if they understand, like, you can bring up Kyle Harrison. He's not seasoned enough. He's going to be DeSclafani, but with more walks and more strikeouts. Mm-hmm. So he's going to have great games. He's going to have rough games. So I think what you have right now is, DeSclafani, what you've got. So you just kind of keep riding that. It's not like you're going to bench him and do anything else. But I think people are looking for that third starter, that third consistent starter. And Wood isn't it right now. DeSclafani is showing that he could be it. Manea's not it. Stripling's not it. So I think that's the frustrating part, is fans want that 1, 2, 3 punch, because like you always say, when you go into a short series, if you've got a 1-2, that's good. But if you've got a 1, 2, 3, you've got a very, very good chance of advancing. And then if you have a 1, 2, 3, you also have a very good chance in the next couple of rounds and in the World Series. But right now, with just a 1, 2, that's going to be tough. Farhan did say they're going to be very active at the trade deadline. What does that mean? You're going to sell? You're going to buy? We don't know if they're a 500 club. If the Giants are around a 500 club at the trade deadline, you have to buy. I mean, with that extra wild card spot, 6 games over 500, it could get you into the playoffs, no problem. So if you can get a third pitcher, and round out your rotation to give you that extra boost, and then you can get 6 games over, 7 games over. By the time the season ends, you've got yourself a playoff spot. And that's what, he said when he came in first at the end of 2019. He said, this is what we want. We want to be competitive. We want to play competitive baseball all the way through September and give this team a shot every year. So,
do you know the Arizona Diamondbacks are tied with the Dodgers for first place?
Yeah, they've been back and forth with them for like 3 or 4 days now. That is insane.
Yeah,
that is really insane. I mean, they kicked the crap out of us down in Arizona.
One of my buddies is a Dodger fan, and he's so disappointed in their team. I think I've mentioned this, and I'm just like, I would reverse positions with you in a second. I would be disappointed in this 35 and 25 team. But the Diamondbacks are right there, and the Giants are the perfect description of a 500 team. They're 29 and 30 right now, but their expected win and loss is only 30 and 29. They're +1 in the run differential, so they're like the perfect 500 ball club. That's just who they are, and we'll see what happens. We'll see if Farhan couldn't, maybe if you could make a trade before, the trade deadline, that could maybe help them get above the hump of just being a 500 ball club, because they do need something. Like it's fun, because it's always fun with the young guys, especially when the young guys, you can actually see the value and you can see why the Giants are excited about guys even if Bailey, I think the Giants fans are sophisticated enough to see how good he is behind the plate, and especially when you have the comparison with Sable, and you're like,
yeah,
Bailey good, Sable bad. And it's very
yeah.
easy to see. And we'll see what happens because Bart is back. He's going to be back soon. And I still want to see it. I want to see the Joey Bart hit against lefties and Patrick Bailey hitting against righties. That's what I want to see. I want to see the young catchers.
Get ready for the wave of phantom injuries, man. We talked about we got all these guys coming back. There's going to be a lot of phantom injuries coming.
Yeah.
Tristan Beck is a guy, he's up because Wood was put on the IL. So he's a guy you can send back down. So that's one spot. But after that, Farhan's going to have to get pretty creative to get all of you're talking Tyro, Jock, Joey Bart, who's on, rehab assignment in AAA right now. That's three guys who have a roster spot. You're not gonna send Joey down because you're not gonna ride it out with Bailey and Sable as your two catchers. That's dangerous. Bart and Sable was dangerous enough. I think now that they see we have a defensive catcher, it's going to get interesting. Some things are going to get interesting here pretty soon.
All right, if there is a road trip to kind of make up some ground here, let's if we want to go on the road, this is not a bad road trip here, except that Colorado is still a 500 home team. So even though they're a terrible away team, they're still an average. They're basically the Giants when they're home. So this is, it's not like the Giants are going to go in there and win 3 straight, because the Rockies at home, as always, historically, are just a different team than they are away.
Never out of a ball game there late, no matter what.
And then we come back home for 3 with the Cubs. So the Cubs are, they're a little bit under 500. Actually, they're now 5.5 games back and 5 games, 6 games under 500. So this would be a nice opportunity to, to kind of make up for some of the games that were, losing that game to the Pirates. Game 2 was frustrating, and then losing game 1 to the Orioles was frustrating. You kind of hope that, a good team wins both of those games, but you can, hopefully you can make that up with the Cubs. Though I will say the Cubs run differential is +6, though they're also a different team on the road than they are at home. So I think there's some opportunity here. Not saying the Giants are going to go 6-0. In past Thompson to Clark's, Brad would say 6-0, and then it'd be like 2-4 sometimes. But
so you're saying I jinx us when I say that? I won't say that anymore because I don't want to jinx us, man. I want to get back on a roll.
But this would be the time, because next week, not that the Cardinals are world beaters. They're the opposite of world beaters this year, and they're struggling. But going into St. Louis never feels right to me, and then you got to go into LA after that. So this is the week. Giants want to make up a little bit of ground. This is the week to do it. Cubs at home, and you got the Rockies on the road. So I'm hoping for something like a 4-2. I think a 3-3 would be fine, but anything less than 3-3 is kind of like, this team is telling me something. So I'm hopeful that they play well this week. All right. That is
and go Knights. Let's go.
There you go. Wait, I know they won game 1.
They won game 1, and we're not even 6 minutes into the second period, and the Knights are up 4-0.
Wow.
In game 2.
I was in
game
Vegas.
Game 3 is what's today? Game 3 is Thursday.
I was in Vegas, and they lost that game in Vegas.
Yeah.
But you couldn't get, it was all kinds of traffic, because all the cab drivers were like, "Yep, they're playing at T-Mobile, and it's going to take us forever to get anywhere." Because
that's a hard place to get in and out of. T-Mobile is cool. If you're staying on the Strip somewhere, you can walk there. It's super easy. But if you're trying to drive in and out of that, and the A's are going to be not too far across the street from that, and then the Raiders are not too far from that, that's a heck of an area. And those 3 sports do have a little bit of overlap in October. So although the A's would have to be playing in October. so there's that. September, let's say September.
You mean you're not confident in the 12-49 A's?
Wow.
197 winning percentage?
Yeah, that thing I sent you earlier from Bet Online AG.
Yeah.
The A's over under for wins on the season was 59.5. It has now changed to 47.5. And how many wins do they have right now? You said 14?
They have 12.
12. So they'd have to win. I got to do math here. They got 35 more games.
Yeah.
Can they win 35 more games the rest of the season? I don't know, man. They're rough.
Yeah. It is one of the worst teams in the history of baseball.
Oh, so bad. So bad. And I feel bad for the A's fans because,
Totally.
The A's fans are a special breed. They love their team. They're always so supportive of the A's, and I don't care what people say. Yeah, it's old and run down. The Coliseum was a fun place back in the 80s and 90s to go watch games. Now it's probably just a complete dump, and they absolutely deserve better, but they don't. They deserve a better stadium, but not in a different state. They deserve it in Oakland down by the waterfront. And
absolutely.
And I'm sad that didn't happen. So,
I'm not convinced this Vegas thing is going to happen for them. They're going to screw it up. They screw everything up.
Oh, yeah.
They're going to screw it up. They're going to come begging back to Oakland, and Oakland's going to hopefully have the leverage there and go, okay, we're doing this on our, on what we want, not what you guys want. You guys don't have any leverage. You're the worst single team in baseball.
And Nevada legislature ends soon, just a couple more days.
Yeah. They got to get it done.
My state here, Nevada, is willing to just hand them a bunch of money. And of course it's my money. And because it's going to be state taxes, and then it's going to be also local Clark County taxes. And they're willing to just say, here's a bunch of money. Here's $350 something million to help build your stadium. I don't want it, man. I like going down to Vegas. It's fun. And during the summer is when I like going. We're going in July, and I don't think I'd go to an A's game while I was down there. Because it would be super pricey. And when there's other things like I want to spend my money on the Beatles Love Show.
You know what, though? I think
that's what I would do
during the day. Super hot. You're not going to want to walk the strip. You're going to want to either be in a hotel or hanging out by a pool. And then I think one of those days you're going to go, you know what? Let's go into this air-conditioned ballpark. The former, they're going to knock down the Tropicana and build the park, and then I guess rebuild.
I don't think anybody's going to miss that place.
No. And then I guess rebuild the Trop behind it or something, right? I guess that's
I think that's what they're going to do. But that's the other problem though, is you have a brand new stadium, so you're not going to be like, hey, I'll pop in there for $25 to watch a game. Oh no, it's going to be like 125, $150 to sit in some decent seats to watch a game. And I don't think I'm going to want to do that when I go down there to visit, but
we'll see. Yeah, because a lot of those tickets are going to be, casino buys for their high rollers.
And I don't gamble. So that's not me.
And then maybe the market says, well, you can't really sell to casual baseball fans for $150. They'll go for $50. Right. They're not going to go for $150.
Yeah, I hope not. If we can go down there and spend $50 a ticket and go to a game, Giants are in town, go watch the Giants and A's play in July in an air-conditioned stadium. Yeah, I would probably do that. But again, I might be paying for the stadium. So
yeah, you already going to be
get some comp tickets.
Yeah, you should get the Vegas tickets, the casino buys.
Yeah, exactly.
Living in the city.
Go down there and show them my license and be like, here you go, man.
Exactly. All right. That's it from here. We will be back next week, and hopefully a good week. I feel a good week coming. So hoping for
not 6-0, not 6-0.
Reverse jinx, baby.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hoping for 4-2. Let's see if we can get to 4-2. So
I'll take.
We'll be back next week. We'll see when we see you. Peace out.
Peace.